Wonderful.
Okay, you're live.
Good afternoon. I would like to call to order the April 19th, 2021 meeting of the Town of Keel Island Board of Zoning Appeals. As you know, the town, until further notice, will conduct all committee and public meetings over video conference. These meetings will be streamed to the town's YouTube channel, as we are doing today. Members of the public wishing to submit comments regarding any of the presented BZA cases should email their comments to Town Clerk Petra Reynolds at preynolds@keelisland.org. The board members who will hear the case today are Wendy Kulik, Jay Lewis, Morris Hannon, Larry Rosenfeld, Ben Farabee, and Russ, I don't see your name here, but Russ Berner as well, and myself, Frank Cassidy. Staff members present are John Taylor Jr., our planning director, and Joe Wilson, our attorney. Our case rulings for this and for any BZA meeting are available for public review and inspection during normal business hours at the town hall. SC Code 6-29-820 states that the appeal must be filed by the applicant within 30 days after the decision of the board is mailed to them. Failure to file an appeal within the time limit of, I'm sorry. Missed something here. Because today's meeting is a public meeting, first I'll ask if anyone would like me to go over the rules of procedure of the Board of Zoning Appeals. If not, if you would like to hear those rules, raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll continue. Seeing none, I'll continue. Because today's hearing is a public fact-finding meeting, we are in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act and SC Code 6-29-70. Because this is a quasi-judicial body, everything said in this meeting must be complete, true, and accurate. All information provided to the BZA is considered evidence, and this board may certify contempt of circuit court if false statements are made, either in writing or orally. Because of this, each person who wishes to address the board will be sworn in. In order to expedite this procedure, anyone who's going to speak today, I just ask you to raise your hands, and Joe will recognize you and administer the oath.
Okay. For all the witnesses, do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
I do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I shall now call case BZA 21-000004 at 390 Governor's Drive. Staff will present facts pertinent to the case, and I shall then call the applicant to address the case. The applicant shall please stand and state their name and current address for the record before presenting testimony. I will then ask for those speaking either in support, followed by those against the case, and they shall follow the same procedure for identifying themselves and are limited to 2 minutes each. The applicant will also have 2 minutes for rebuttal. John, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. Are you all able to see my screen that I've begun sharing already? I just want to make sure before I get started.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. So we do have one variance case for your consideration today. Application BZA 21-000004. The applicant and the property owner, High Dunes LLC, is requesting a variance, and this is for the reduction of the required 30-foot side setback. for approximately 414 square feet encroachment for a proposed single-family residence. The subject property is 390 Governors Drive, located on Kiowa Island, TMS number 26404000081. Additionally, this property is zoned R1, R1 residential, and the required setbacks are listed here. As mentioned, a 30-foot side setback is the area of question today. Subject property does fall within the developed lands and is approximately 18,979 square feet in size. Currently, the site is vacant and has quite mature vegetation on the site, and it sits adjacent to a lagoon to its east as well as to the south. You can see here in the zoning map where the lagoon sits in relation to the subject property. Again, a few images of aerials of the subject property. Additionally, it's to note within the ordinance, we define setback as that required minimum distance from a lot line or street right of way or OCM critical line. And so here's a couple images of the site. I'll walk you through just a few site images I took. Most of these are external. As the subject property is heavily wooded and or with mature vegetation. The proposed plans do include a new single-family residence. One thing I do want to point out in your materials, it states that the single-family residence is about 5,582 square feet in size. That's actually the lot coverage, the entire site of improved area. The actual square footage of the house is roughly 3,092 square feet. This does sit at approximately 29.4% of lot coverage, which sits under the maximum allowable lot coverage of 33%. The additional notes that I do want to point out before I go through the criteria, staff did communicate that the buildable area due to its erosion would not meet the standard administrative review process that would grant the automatic relief, and that's due to the amount of eroded area that could be dictated. And so that was shared with the applicants. And following that, the applicant did submit for a variance, and the reason why we're here today. Additionally, you have within your materials as part of this application a letter from the Architectural Review Board, which they have stated that they are open to the proposed variance, given the significant impact to the buildable area due to the pond erosion, as well as a live oak preservation that's on the site. And they will be look forward to the request be generally in keeping with that currently submitted site plan as shown. Secondly, the applicant has also submitted to U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for a wetlands determination. And in your materials, you'll also see, it'll probably be easier for me to show this exhibit, where that wetlands delineation application is referencing. In addition to that, the critical area that's been defined by OCRM is included sort of in the more dense hatched area there. The applicant has provided that application for your review to see. But as noted in the materials of the staff review, we have not received an official confirmation from U.S. Army Corps of Engineers just yet on that determination. I will go through the staff findings as it pertains to this particular application, which based on the criteria of approval, staff finds for criteria A that there may be extraordinary and exceptional conditions to this particular lot, and that's due to the required setbacks, including the 30-foot side yard setback adjacent to the lagoon, the existing trees on the property. That does include 30-inch live oak, and the adjacency of the subject property to both the south and the east as it pertains to the lagoon. The applicant has stated in their letter of intent that, quote, the extraordinary and exceptional condition on the lot is the pond erosion that has reduced the buildable area by approximately 469 square feet. In addition, there is a 30-foot live oak tree in the buildable area that they would like to preserve, end quote. Criteria B, staff findings that these conditions may be unique to the subject property and may not generally apply to other properties in the vicinity. The subject property is R1. The adjacent properties may be R1 or Parks and Recreation. And that would be for the open space area where the lagoon is. Additionally, the applicant has stated that these conditions do not generally apply to other properties. Adjacent properties have 15 side setbacks rather than 30-foot side setbacks. Criteria C, the application of the ordinance to this property of 390 Governors Drive. This would prohibit the construction of the proposed single family. It does extend into the required setback, that 30-foot side setback. And so without the variance, this would not be able to be constructed. Criteria D, the authorization of the variance may not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property owners. The proposed setback encroachment occurs adjacent to open space, opposite the side of an adjacent resident. And per the applicant's letter of intent, quote, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent properties as we are moving further away from it. This variance would not result in any detriment to the public good because most of the setback encroachment is away from the public realm. By the same token, the character of the zoning district would not be harmed. Criteria E, the Board of Zoning Appeals shouldn't consider or should not grant a variance to the effect that would establish a use not otherwise permitted. That would be not the case in this particular application. The criteria F, the Board of Zoning Appeals may not consider profitability when considering this variance request. Criteria G, staff findings, the need for the variance may be the result of the applicant's own actions. Since the subject property is vacant, the proposed residence could be reconfigured. However, the subject property may be constrained by the existing large oak and the erosion of the adjacent lagoon. Per the applicant's letter of intent, due to the lost buildable area by the pond erosion and tree protection, the application of the ordinance would unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. To account for these conditions, the house would be situated at an angle on the property, such that it's far enough away from the 30-inch live oak. And then criteria H, staff findings is that the granting of the variance may not be contrary to the public or neighborhood interests and may not adversely affect other property in the vicinity, nor that interfere with the harmony and spirit and intent of the purpose of the regulations. And so I've referenced the architectural review statement already. The Architectural Review Board has shared their openness to support this particular variance. And that's due to the live oak on site and the pond erosion. And then the final criteria, which is criteria I, which speaks to the comprehensive plan. Staff findings is that the granting of the variance may not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of the ordinance. The subject property does meet the required lot coverage of 29.4%. That's as I stated before, under the 33% requirement of a maximum allowable. And the applicant has also shared that requesting of the variance will enable the home to be repositioned, thus ensuring that the property is developed in a way that preserves and incorporates natural features and the inch live oak in particular. That concludes my staff review. What I do want to do is allude to a couple of public comments that were received, or at least one person of interest, who's the property owner of 432 Snowy Egret. And then I forwarded you moments before the meeting a letter that was a response to those particular points that was addressed by the public comment letter by the applicant. And so you may not have had time to review that because that was just sent moments ago, but I will defer to the applicant to reiterate or iterate those points made as it pertains to responding to the public comments that were received. Just know that you have these actions before you. You can approve with conditions, you can deny. You can also wait for additional information as it pertains to this case before you render a decision. And so if there are questions, I'll entertain those, Mr. Cassidy.
Thank you, John. Questions for John?
Frank, I have a couple which I think are related to what John just reviewed. First question, John, is it's been a while since I've looked at it, but my recollection is that if wetlands are going to be encroached upon, mitigation isn't required unless it's more than 25 acres involved. Does my memory serve me correctly, or am I wrong?
So we don't, when it comes to wetlands mitigation, that would be something that the state would have purview over. So OCRM would make that determination. We don't have anything in our ordinance that would be a requirement for a homeowner applicant to mitigate wetlands impact. That would be something that the state would provide sort of an avenue for.
Okay, and then the other question was that as you reviewed the various points, you said that if this variance is not approved, the home as designed could not be constructed. If we were to deny this variance, could a home be constructed on the lot? In other words, if the homeowner altered the plans so that there wasn't encroachment into this area, could a home be constructed there?
I would imagine a home would be able to be constructed. There's still the same site conditions will remain. So that I would sort of defer that to the architect to maybe think about that. But the same site restrictions or site complications, if you will be remained in place.
Thank you.
John, question?
Go ahead, Russ.
Thank you. It's my understanding, Wendy, in reviewing the plans, and the architect should confirm this, that there is not any construction planned in the wetlands area. The drawings demark a setback perimeter around the wetlands. And again, I'd like the architect to confirm, but it's my review of the plan says there's no construction going on, so the wetlands will not be disturbed.
Yeah, I will defer that to the applicants to discuss, but if I may just briefly share my screen one more time and sort of highlight, I think, what you are commenting, Mr. Berner. The area of where the lagoon is, there's no sort of built or structure in that area, or the area that's in question to be wetlands. And so the applicant has identified a buffer or setback off of that wetland area. So essentially that the rear of the property would not be built on, if you will. But I will definitely defer that to the applicant to disclose those details.
Other questions? John, I had a couple of questions about wetlands determination. who makes that determination and when was it made for this particular piece of property?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go to one. So when it comes to actual wetlands, or well, let me simplify it this way. So you have what we would know as uplands or highlands where structures can be built. And then the lowlands, what will be considered wetlands. This is a jurisdiction determination by OCRM, what would say, hey, for instance, this area is marsh area, or this area is a creek. However, when it's not marsh area, there's also the Army Corps of Engineer that comes in to determine freshwater jurisdiction. And so that is what this application sort of circles around, is the determination by the Army Corps of Engineers to say, hey, this lagoon area is designated freshwater wetlands. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so with this application that the applicant is sending to the Corps of Engineers, are they requesting that the Corps verify that this particular piece of the property is wetlands?
Yeah, so they have put that application into the Corps to say, can we verify that this area now, and it's based on some of the images, you can see that it's a low, or I don't know how to describe it, but without walking on the site. But that would be something, yes, that they are requesting from the Corps to make that determination that this is an official wetlands area.
Okay, thank you. Ben?
Yeah, John, well, given that, are we prematurely looking at this variance request, whether until that decision's made?
I don't believe so. That's weighing in on the application, but in my staff review, the applicant has also reiterated that there is a 30-inch live oak that they're considering as part of this application. So although that may be one factor, there's multiple sort of facets in the reasoning for this variance request. But if you, to be more clear to, I think your point, if you don't feel comfortable making a decision on this, then I would say, hey, take a pause to get whatever information that you need to make that decision. Well,
is that to say that we may be making a decision that it becomes a moot decision?
meaning
And the fact that the decision wouldn't have to be made had we known what the Corps of Engineers were going to do?
I mean, that's all for your consideration. Maybe I think for purposes of what's at question today, it's more so based on what has been submitted to you at this time.
Okay.
Do you feel comfortable that this is a approvable state? Like I said, though, to me as staff, I've pulled out two things that the applicant has sort of highlighted for the reasoning of this particular request. And that would be due to the erosion of, I think, what was approximately 460 feet. And then the live oak that is on the site. So I would leave it to you to make that determination if you deem it. I've completed it as a complete application, if that's your question. So, yeah.
Okay. Another question, John. When was this property purchased by the present owners?
I can find that information for you. Just one second.
Last year.
Oh, okay. Maybe Mr. Cassidy, if we can maybe hear from the applicant now, and then that may be something to get some of the other questions. I don't know if there are other questions for me, but I know that there may be some other questions for the applicant. I've noticed.
I see a number of other questions here. Larry?
I walked the lot. We were down this past weekend and I walked the lot or parts of it. it's a beautiful lot. There's no two ways about it. It has some really unique features. But I just get the feeling that that lot, I think the builders are trying to push the envelope a little bit too much. You can build a beautiful house on that lot that does not have to encroach at all. And if they're worried about erosion and wetlands and all other problems, I just think it would be smarter for them to design a house that didn't encroach on that 400 and some odd feet. I don't think we're talking about making them make a 2-room cabin as opposed to a livable home. There's a lot of space on that lot. And I think that the design, since ground isn't broken, foundations aren't poured, there's nothing done so far. And okay, I know Russ is the expert in this area and I'm not, but I just have a feeling that the envelope is trying to be stretched, and there are zoning laws for basic reasons. And I just feel that this is not necessary to do what they're doing. That's my feeling. And then you can talk to the Army Corps of Engineers and wetlands and live oaks and this and that, but you can fit a beautiful home on that lot without disturbing the oak and without encroaching on any of the setbacks that are there for a reason. That's it. I'm finished.
Russ.
Are there any questions? Because I don't want this to go into a discussion before we actually hear from the applicant.
Well, I could ask the applicant, but I could wait for the applicant and then I'll talk.
Okay, Jay?
John, is there any historical data about the pond erosion? How long it's been going on? If the owner's only been there for a year, do we have anything going back further? How bad is it? How bad is it going to be?
That was my question.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do as part of your materials, there were 2 exhibits that I'm going to reference now that may show. Give me 1 second to pull this up. I'm going to pull the original survey plat. And this has some age on it. I'm trying to remember what date is on right now. All right, so this would have been the original layout of the lot when you can see where the lagoon edge is. Forgive me for not having the date right now. I'll need to pull the date of this plat, but I don't have that as part of it right now. That would be the original sort of layout of where the lagoon edge is. This would be estimated a few feet away from the actual property boundaries of the subject lot. And then if you were to look at the survey, sorry about that. Trying to manipulate this, and there we go. So this is a portion of where the actual OCRM has delineated critical area. And so the lagoon is definitely encroaching. And then a couple more exhibits probably will show you from an aerial. To your question though, Mr. Lewis, I don't have an exact reference other than what the applicant has shared as part of their, if you notice here, you can somewhat see a little bit of how the pond erosion has creeped into the site. And this is just from an aerial. But as far as an actual number, I would defer that to the applicant, which they have shared is about 469 feet of lost buildable area.
Hey, John, John, I just have a real quick question. Do we have any mitigation in place to prevent any further erosion that's going to make this problem even worse?
Does the town have?
Is there anything on that property that's going to prevent any further erosion of that particular lot.
Let's
So
have the
currently-
applicant address that maybe. Okay, if there's nothing further, Mr. Hofford or Ms. O'Connor, who's speaking first?
I'll speak first if that's okay. Julie's the architect, I'm the property owner. Thank you for taking your time. I want to emphasize a couple of facts. One, we're not intruding on any wetlands. Two, the area that is slightly eroded on the one side has been that way for a long time, and it's based on vegetation, not necessarily water. We did bring OCRM out to the site with Newkirk Environmental, and they've all looked at it, done their studies and reports. Corps of Engineers is not making trips into the field for these types of site visits, so the application's been submitted to them with the photos and the OCRM determination, and it will, in all likelihood, be signed and stamped and returned. We just don't know when that'll be. So I don't think we're waiting on anything new coming from anybody on any determinations. It's been surveyed and determined. We're not trying to move closer to the lake. We're just trying to move slightly over to the side and basically orient the house in a, a presence to the street that's somewhat symmetrical to the lot lines and the configuration of the lot. So yeah, we could design some kind of a different type of home, but this is a pretty basic 3,000 square foot house. We'd like to at least have it on the view. A 30-foot setback is significantly more than anything else in the area, and we're asking to intrude in it just a little bit on the sides. So we think that, the reason the Board of Zoning Appeals exists is to listen to these types of things and hopefully help homeowners. We obviously went to the ARB first and met on the site, and they're all in agreement. This is a reasonable request, and we're not trying to do more than we could or should. We obviously are also trying to move away from the 30-inch oak tree, which is a specimen tree, and would like to try and save it. So having said that, I'll let the architect make some comments.
Before you get off, can you tell me the date you purchased the property?
I can't recall. Let's just say the second half of last year.
Thank you.
Can I speak to the, Bill, he asked us to speak to the letter.
Excuse me?
Go ahead, Julie.
Okay. Hi, I'm Julie O'Connor. I'm on the design team, hired by Hank and his team. And I'll just add just a couple of things. The ARB is actually who suggested we explore the idea of a zoning variance for this setback, because this 30-inch live oak is such a nice tree, and it certainly pushes us over into this setback. And they felt that that setback being 30 feet versus a typical 15-foot side setback was something that would be possible to achieve. Of course, there is no neighbor on that side. That is lagoon and then some HOA space. So again, just from a zoning perspective, maybe a little bit more pleasing in terms of a variance. That live oak tree and its protection zone takes about 500 square feet of buildable area out of our property if we preserve it. And so again, it was the ARB's suggestion that we look at a zoning variance to save that tree. And then just to reiterate what Mr. Hofford said, we are not encroaching on a wetland, and a freshwater wetland has a 5-foot setback. So that's indicated on the plans that we are meeting that 5-foot setback from the freshwater wetland. And to Mr. Taylor's point, this is a 3,000 square foot house. That 5,500 square foot number is the lot coverage, which is about 3% under what the max would be.
Questions for the applicants? Yes, Wendy.
This question, Frank, is for Hank. Hank, is this a home you're building that you're going to live in, or are you building it on spec in order to sell it?
It's a spec building.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, that
Ben?
kind of begs the question on your application to whoever it was. You said you were going to live in it.
I don't recall that. If
We
that
should
was
look
stated,
at-
that's an error. Somebody's
Yeah, you
gonna live in it, but
Oh, yeah. You should look at it. This say you're gonna, I intend to develop projects which will be designated to all professionals. I intend to live in it.
you right there? Well, I apologize for that.
Jay, did you have a question? Jay, you're on mute.
Yeah,
There you
I
go.
had to take it off. Back to the pond erosion and the mitigation. Is there anything planned to stop the erosion or gain anything back?
I would anticipate that would plant vegetation that will stabilize it. I don't have any, obviously you're not allowed to fill it in any way. So we would probably just try to stabilize it and reinforce it with vegetation.
Russ?
I just wanted to follow up with, one of the neighbors wrote an article or wrote an email stating something to the fact, or, that they didn't use the word nesting, but they were concerned about wildlife being affected. I would like to know what has been done to investigate if, given the current situation we have in Kiewit, there's any nests that are there, and if in fact, the neighbor's comment is accurate, if wildlife is going to be affected or not.
We've been on the site numerous times. Haven't seen any nesting, certainly run into an alligator over there. That's about it.
Anything else?
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Hi, this is Anna Halford. I would encourage you guys to, I know it was just submitted this afternoon, but we did address the comments from the
Neighbor's letter.
from the neighbor in detail, and a lot of that speaks to some of the things you're asking now with respect to, what potential impacts there could or would be, and the respective agencies that have jurisdiction over those resources.
Could you comment on that?
I'm sorry,
Could you comment on what was said?
I did.
No, said, could you?
Could you?
Oh, sure. Well, so I guess just as far as one of the comments was allowing construction closer to the lagoon would disturb the delicate wildlife habitat. First of all, wouldn't be constructing, the variance would not allow for construction or placement of the home any closer to the lagoon area than it is. But the primary impetus for this zoning, as Julie alluded to, is the preservation and protection of the 30-foot live oak tree in the center of the lot. So it's essentially shifting the layout of the house to maintain an adequate buffer around that live oak, and not having to take it down. That is what results in the requested variance area, which again is 30 feet, where all the adjacent properties are 15 feet. And it is actually less than the amount of lost buildable area due to the pond erosion. As far as the being concerned about wildlife habitat, again, the Wetlands Determination has been made. The Corps will either approve or not. In doing that, the Corps has to account for, obviously, Clean Water Act Section 404, but all of the ancillary environmental authorizations that pertain to a federal action, being Section 401 of the Clean Water Act, which is water quality, the Madison-Stevens Fisheries Act, the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, et cetera. The point is, they wouldn't approve anything if there were going to be a significant environmental impact. And same thing for OCRF.
Okay. I have one other question. If this variance is not approved, would you take the live oak down to build?
We haven't studied it from that perspective, but if it's not approved, it'll impact the live oak because we'll have to cut limbs off of it in order to put the house closer to it. No matter, obviously we'll try and preserve the root structure, but it's got a beautiful shape to it. And so if we come back over toward it, some of it will be cut. I'm not gonna say will be cut down.
A question for Hank. So in other words, if we don't approve it, your option is solely to cut or trim the live oak?
It didn't
rather
didn't
than
say that,
redesign
but
the house to a different size or a different shape?
I'm not going to say, no, I didn't say I'm going to go cut the tree down if we don't get the variance. What we're trying to do is fit the house on the site in a comfortable way. And we think what we've submitted is an appropriate approach to nestling it in between the wetlands, between the lagoon, and between the oak tree.
Okay, how about a basic question? If we don't approve the variance, are you still going to build a house there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you'll just have to redesign at that time, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I have a question of John when you're through with the applicant.
Go ahead, Ben.
John, given that this is a spec house, would the staff reconsider their answer to F?
Sorry, I was muted there. No, there wouldn't be a change. It's no matter the homeowner, whether it's like someone who's going to live in the house or not. I don't think that would have merits on someone requesting a variance.
Well, this
So,
is a business. This is a
that's-
business. This is a business decision now. It's not a.
Well, the applicant is the homeowner. So whether someone builds, we've had cases, and not to say that this is a precedent or anything, but if someone requests a variance and then sells their property, that variance runs with the property. So it doesn't necessarily matter if the homeowner who attains that variance.
I'm questioning the profitability issue. This is a business decision being made by a businessman on a spec home, and he's trying to maximize that. So I'm asking, we're being asked to participate in that.
I think it would be, I mean, this is for your discretion, but I don't know, you would have to prove that profitability concept is inserted there. So I as staff response, I don't see that there, but I would leave that to your discretion to prove that profitability is there as my comments there, yeah.
John,
Any,
a technical question.
And maybe Joe can lean in on a little bit
Well,
to clarify that.
Yeah, I feel like John's correct on this. I mean, it's just not a factor under our code, whether I don't know that the applicant is here saying, do this because I'm going to make more money, right? I mean, so, because they can't do that. So
They can't?
They can't use that as an excuse or as a factor
They can't.
for seeking the variance. That's the point of this. So
I guess that's for us to root out, huh?
Well,
John,
Our goal is to build the best house on the site with the most appropriate siting of the home. So no matter who's going to build or live in that home, they're going to want to put it in the best place to preserve the features of the home and enjoy the nature of Kiowa.
John, a technical issue in terms of procedures. If the BZA were to deny the variance today, would the applicant have to wait a year before coming back to the BZA?
It would depend on if the applicant is wanting to submit a different application. If there is a different application, it does not have to wait a year to come back to the BZA. Is that clear?
it can't be further reaching though.
I'm sorry, there can't be what?
It can't be seeking a greater variance. It could perhaps seek a lesser variance
But if they were to, if this were denied today and the applicant were to decide, okay, we're going to submit a different plan, which won't require a variance, the applicant would
Oh.
not have to wait a year or would have to wait a year,
They would
Joe?
not have to wait a year. I
Okay,
mean, because it doesn't come back before the board.
Correct.
thank
And
you.
also, I would point out, because I anticipated this question, so I looked it up. The board can always waive that 12-month wait by a vote. It was either 2/3 or 3/4, but it's a super majority.
Anything else?
Yeah, Mr. Cassidy, I did want to highlight that Sarah Sense from the Architecture Review Board has joined the meeting, and I'm not sure, probably may have wanted to share some comments. She may need to be sworn in though, Joe, so.
Joe, you want to share?
John, I don't have any particular comments.
Okay.
Unless somebody has a question for me.
Okay.
If there are no further comments, I'll entertain any motions that anyone would care to make.
Frank, I would make a motion that any decision on this be deferred until DHEC issues its ruling.
Do you mean the Corps of Engineers, Wendy?
I'm sorry, the Corps of Engineers. You're absolutely right. Thank you, Frank.
I'll second that.
Oh,
Okay. Any discussion?
yeah, that was my question really to John in terms of trying to get at whether or not we need to move forward on this. And from his answer, I kind of got the impression that we could go ahead and not feel like we're going to get a lot of information or something that's going to turn this around on its end. I
Also, the
didn't
next,
see the need- I didn't see the need for it, but
there's also a
Russ.
question is how long till the Corps of Engineers decides to do this?
No idea.
Yeah, we don't know that.
So deferring could effectively be killing it by time attrition.
Russ?
I'm not, my answer is not going, is really not going to be a hint of how I'm feeling on this application or not, but I've worked with the Corps before. I'm not sure what they're going to be pontificating on, because there isn't, according to this construction plan, there isn't going to be any disturbance to the wetlands. So I'm not sure what I'm not really not sure what they're supposed to be doing and what we're waiting for.
I thought that that what the applicant was requesting was the Corps of Engineers to certify that the piece of buildable land that is now not buildable is in fact wetlands, because that's the reason they can't use that piece of land. Is that correct, Mr. Hofford?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, well, and I understand that. So then what's the current surveyed wetlands based on then?
We took A, a new survey, and B, Newkirk Environmental, and also OCRM to the site. And everybody agreed that the survey you have reflects what they consider to be the wetland delineation of the property. And it simply is sent to Corps of Engineers for a final signature and filing. They don't expect any comments or site visit by the Corps.
All right,
That's
so the
what I
Corps
asked.
is just going to not rubber stamp, is just going to confirm the delineation is correct.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
How long ago was that sent to the Corps?
Last year,
February. It was February.
February.
February of this year or last year?
This
I'm
year.
sorry, it sounds like it was February of this year.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded on the table. A yes vote will be to defer action on this variance request until we get a Corps of Engineers ruling. A no vote would be to not so defer. Let me call the roll. Wendy,
Yes,
Jay,
No,
Morris,
Yes,
Larry,
No,
Ben,
No,
Russ,
I think we have to. I'm going to say yes.
and Frank is a no. Motion does not carry 4-3. Are there any other motions?
I'd like to make a motion to deny the request for zoning. I think the house can be redesigned to fit in on an existing lot. I don't want to make a strange comment, but it's 5,600 square feet. Take some of the square footage off, and it would still be a magnificent house on a magnificent lot. My feeling is the variance is unnecessary in this. There are reasons for the zoning setups and the setbacks, and I think they should be adhered to in this case.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Comments? Discussion?
My only comment, I'm sorry, do you recognize me?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Russ.
I thought we heard, and I just want to get the numbers correct in the record. Again, it's not a reflection of my intent. I thought we heard from the applicant that the 5,000 foot value was for the building coverage, not the size of the house.
Correct. That's been clarified.
All right, because I think based on what I heard, because I had the initial first impression as Larry, you did, that I said, boy, this is a big house, but I think it's not a big house. And I just want to make sure we're all, so we all know the correct numbers. That's the only reason I'm bringing it up. And I think that I hear earlier today, it's more like around 3,200.
Correct. I've shared an exhibit for your review there where it shows that the actual total, the 5,600 number, that's coming from the entire impervious surfaces. So that would include the driveways, everything. But the actual home is the 3,000 that you're referencing.
3,000, okay. Okay.
I still feel that you can shift the house on the lot. You can change the format to some degree and fit it in there without encroaching. And if the lot has wetlands and lagoons and everything else, I just don't think it's the right thing to do.
I'm just going to say, I'm going to vote no on this motion. I personally think that this is a very reasonable accommodation. If you look at the factors that the applicant has cited, first you've got the live oak, and then secondly you've got this piece of buildable area that is now not buildable because it's wetlands. In order to mitigate for that, they're taking a very small slice of a 30-foot setback on the lagoon side in order to keep the house in the size they'd like to have it. That to me does not strike me as an unreasonable request. So that's my thinking. But Ben.
My thinking is a little bit different than that, Frank, and that being that nothing's been disturbed there yet. And there's still plenty of room and time to evaluate alternatives to this approach. I haven't heard any alternatives, any consideration here for what else could be done to avoid a variance. I think there's plenty of time and room to do that. We don't have a buyer sitting out there waiting for this, and nothing's been disturbed. So the lot was just recently purchased. It wasn't like this characteristic wasn't existing at that time. Nothing's changed since then. So I'm going to say that they can reconsider this and another alternative.
I'll defer to Joe here, but I thought it was not our business to be sort of getting into the design business here. Is that correct, Joe?
Well, getting into the design business, I mean, suggesting, I think that's correct, but I think that is a limited restriction.
Fair enough.
Sitting here suggesting designs or how to satisfy things is getting a little close.
Gotcha. Ben?
I'm not suggesting a design. I'm only suggesting that they try to live within the ordinance. That's all.
That's right.
I mean,
Any other?
realize it, no, Hank said at one point when I asked him if the variance is denied, are they still going to build a house on the lot? He said definitely. So they can put a house on that lot. Let's not say they're not. And it's not going to be a shack. It's going to be a home. And that has nothing to do with design. And we're not infringing on design. I mean, are you saying that the architect only knows how to design one house and that's it? I doubt that. I'm sure the architect's a lot better than that. He wouldn't be using someone who knows how to build one house and one house alone. And if the only alternative that so far has been broached was when maybe we'll have to cut some limbs off the oak tree, I mean, that's ludicrous. You know it and I know it.
Any other comments? All right, I'll call the question. A yes vote is to deny the variance request. A no vote is to not deny the variance request. I'll call the roll. Wendy,
Yes.
Jay,
No.
Morris,
No.
Larry,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Russ,
No.
and Frank, no. All right, that motion fails. Any others?
Frank, you're starting to look like Kamala Harris.
I'm doing my best here, Larry.
It's okay. That's why we're a group. That's why we vote.
Can I say anything?
We would need a motion now to proceed. So if someone from the other would make a motion, that I think that would move us forward.
Jay, are you making that motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the variance as outlined by the staff.
I'll second
that one
it.
too. I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, a yes vote is to approve, a no vote is to disapprove. Wendy,
No.
Jay,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Larry,
No.
Ben,
No.
Russ,
Yes.
and Frank, yes. The variance is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving along, John, do you have any other business for the group?
I don't have any other business right now. The only thing I sent you all just a notice regarding this Friday, we will have a continuing ed opportunity. So I'm not sure if any of you have signed up for that one, but we do have one this Friday. That's all for me though.
Frank, as a
And then-
point,
Go
as a
ahead,
point
Wendy.
of personal privilege,
I forgot it, Wendy, my bad.
since this is my last meeting, this is the second time I've had the privilege of serving on the Board of Zoning Appeals. This time is a little more than 5 years. The last time was 7 years. Both times, I have been so impressed with the other members of the board with whom I've served, because regardless of the outcomes that have been decided by the boards, the decisions and the reasons for people voting as they do have been very carefully reasoned, very well thought out, and both the attorneys for the BZA, Joe being the third with whom I've worked, have provided excellent legal insight to us. So I wish everybody a great deal of success on the board in the future. And as I say, it has been an honor to be part of this board.
Wendy, you stole my thunder here, but yeah, we want to thank you for both of your terms and your long service to the BZA. In my experience on the board, you've been a voice for preserving the many things that we love about this island, and we thank you for all your work for us.
Thank you.
Thank you,
If there's
Wendy.
nothing else, then we stand as adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, Wendy.
Bye-bye.
See you, Wendy.